Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Total Freedom Show with Rina Lynn, the show that's all about raising the bar of knowledge, healing hurting people, and spiritual warfare. Tonight, we're back in our ancient paganism class. We've been scooting right along with that, but it's been a few weeks since I've recorded one because I've been a little bit tied up with something else, and I really want to get this knocked out and go on to the next class. But to be honest with you, I've got I've got a lot of going on right now, and time to sit down and put the materials together and record it is a little bit slim. So be patient with me for just a little bit. All right, we're going to be talking tonight about healing with occult ghost energy. We're talking about obviously the coming of the new age and how it's coming back in, and it's not really nothing new. But tonight we're going to be talking about the specific practices that's going on. And some of this material was put together several years ago, so I'm sure it could be updated. I shouldn't have time to do that right now. Um, First thing we're going to talk about is something called Reiki. And I'm sure in today's world you've heard that word. What it is, it's a Japanese word for the occult ghost energy. The term Reiki is now used as the title for an occultic meditative type of massage therapy similar to something called therapeutic touch. And that's a form of meditation that's required for you to contact your Reiki spirit guides. Now, where have we heard that term spirit guides before? Whenever you hear that, let your antenna go up. Here's what William Lee Rand, who wrote the book Developing Your Reiki Practice, says. There are higher sources of help you can call on: angels, beings of light, and Reiki spirit guides. That ought to be enough right there to tell you folks to be cautious. And the more I look at this, the more cautious I would get. Look over on your left of this slide, and it says Reiki 1, let the healing begin. You'll see the chakras. This is a classic meditation stance here, or picture, I guess is the better word I'm looking for. I'm stumbling over my words this evening. Over on the right is there's examples of energy therapies. And when they say energy therapies, it's calling on the energy of these spirit guides. There's healing touch, therapeutic touch, Reiki, Jare, chronic healing, acupuncture. I think this is pronounced Qigong, and other hands-on healings. So be really careful who you let lay hands on you and the things that you accept into your life because you just never know what they may be into as well. All right, this is a slide that I picked up a few years ago when someone sent it to me, and I honestly, I used to knew where they got it, but now I don't. It's just been too long since I've taught this. But this came out of, I think, of a hospital brochure that they were given. And so it's literally on the left, it shows the stuff in the hospital brochure that says it's a call of compassion. It talks about the approach, shifts in consciousness, how you outreach, the search, the rebalancing. But on the right, it talks a little bit more. The very first one would concern you if you know anything about occult practices. Centering. This is the intention, preparation, and grounding. And we've talked about centering before, but let me give you just a little catch up. Centering is where you go inside yourself and you let all of your thoughts go and let another spirit's thoughts fill your mind. Or you let the other spirit take over while your mind becomes totally silent, quiet, and just stays out of the way. So be really careful with what you're allowing in. Here's some pictures of therapeutic massage, therapeutic touch. These are all clinics. Um, so it's presented now as modern medicine, something a little bit off from what we would call Western medicine, but still acceptable. But again, be careful where these practices come from. So let's go to the next slide, talk about it just a little bit. The therapeutic touch process, and I do not know where I got this slide. It's been too long ago. This is the dynamic and interactive phases of therapeutic touch process. Again, centering, which is bringing the body, mind, and emotion to a quiet, focused state of consciousness. Now, I would slip in the word there, altered state of consciousness, which we've talked about. Centering is using the breath, imagery, meditation, and or visualizations to open oneself to find an inner sense of equilibrium to connect with the inner core, wholeness and stillness. And again, this is setting yourself aside and letting something else fill you, tapping into an energy outside of yourself. But it's not God's energy. And I'm not gonna read this whole slide. You can stop the video and read it if you want to and look at all that it's concerned. I'm just wanna talk about the practices today, not get down and completely teach each one. You can look into the practices yourself if you would prefer to do that. I did way back in, when I was putting all this together, but it's been a few years. Alright, let's talk about yoga. There's such a thing now called Christian yoga, and it's very concerning. I remember my antennas went up when I heard about it, but I really didn't know that much about the practice of yoga at that time. And my spirit told me there was something off there, but I couldn't have taught why. Now I put a link in here, and I don't think that the link will click through on after I record this. I really don't know how to put a link in my videos that you can click into, but if you'll go on click on Ron Carlson on why there is nothing Christian about yoga on WorldviewTube. I met Ron when I was going to Worldview Weekend seminars with Brannon Howse and actually took Brannon Howse. I was in his very first Leadership Academy class and taught all of this for a while. And we got a copy of all of the videos, but for some reason, part of mine are missing, and I'm really getting concerned about that, but I can't just put it in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the link in the description. Probably gonna put 2 or 3 links in the description. When you get through watching this, please go and watch them all. They're short, like anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes. I think the one with Ron Carlson here, There's Nothing Christian About Yoga, maybe 12 or 13 minutes, but it'll be one of the best 12 or 13 minutes you'll spend if you wanna know what yoga actually is and why we want to stay away from it. The word yoga is actually a Hindu word for yoking with a god, and they mean the Hindu god Brahma. This Hindu god would be considered a demon by Christian theology. The way to yoke with this demon is by practicing a series of stretches and meditation. And put some of those pictures of the stretches and meditation in here. We're all familiar with them. You probably didn't need them. I'm just that way. I gotta go that nth degree because it just to me makes it more interesting, and, when I taught this in person and with the overhead projector, there's a lot of information in here. So I like to give some visuals for people to look at while I'm breaking down the information. Alright, let's see what the Bible has to say about it. In 1 Corinthians 10:20, and I found this in the NIV, which I don't generally use, but I wanted to look at both versions, says, "No, but the sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons, not to God. And I do not want you to be participants with demons." In the KJV, it says, "What say I then? That the idol is anything, or that which is offered in sacrifice to idols is anything? But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils." Again, go watch Ron Carlson. Let him break this down to you in a way that will really, really bring it home, and you'll see the difference there. All right, let's go to Eckander Mystics, and I'm probably saying that right. I don't know that I've heard it said out loud. But this is a small cult that prides itself on practicing a version of astral projection. Now, again, astral projection is something they call soul travel. It's where you supposedly leave your body, you travel on the astral plane, you can tap into the Akashic records and get information that you can't get any other way. I'd have a lot to say on that, but I don't have time to break that down. Now, I'm gonna quote straight from the book with and this so when I'm saying this, when I say this is Ken Johnson speaking, Dr. Ken Johnson. It's his book that I'm teaching out of, and this is what he said. "I was able to attend a seminar that they put on once in Olathe, Kansas. The main speaker talked about the superiority of their soul travel over standard astral projection. He also remarked that it was important to develop our psychic powers through meditation." Oop, slide problem here. Hang on just a minute. During the break that I spoke with him and asked him a few questions. Now, again, this is Dr. Ken speaking. I mentioned that as some studies I have read have found a link between meditation and mental illness. One example was a person with epilepsy. Studies show that epileptics can have a seizure by staring at a blinking red light. Others could actually bring on a seizure by certain forms of meditation. He'd heard of those studies, but did not seem to want to dispute them. This being the case, my question to him changed or became. Sorry, I'm working with 2 screens here. I can't read it off this small one, so I'm having to read it off a big one. Um, this being the case, my question to him was, if I begin to meditate, how do I know that what I'm seeing is real or possibly a hallucination brought on by some short circuit I'm causing in my brain? More importantly, how do I know I can be assured that I will not damage myself by triggering some form of epileptic seizure? His answer surprised me. Instead of giving me a scientific reason for why I would be safe if I did it his way, he simply said, "That's the risk every mystic takes." Folks, wrap your brain around that just a minute and kind of just sit with it. That's the risk that every mystic takes, is to trigger an epileptic episode in yourself. Hmm, interesting. Right? I looked up I was not familiar with Eckander Mystics when I was reading Dr. Ken's book and putting this together, so I just Googled it just to see, was there any in the United States? Was there any in Texas? 'Cause that's where I live right now. And here's what I found. I was rather surprised. There's one extremely close to my house, and I looked up the address, drove by, just kinda got a feel for it, but apparently this is not some small thing. It's pretty widespread. So we kind of need to know what's going on. And when people around us in our church or in our neighborhood or groups at work or whatever begin to talk about what they're into, we kind of need to know what we're looking at here. Otherwise, we may get pulled into something we don't need to be pulled into. All right, let's move on. Transcendental meditation. I had heard this term. I had a similar experience, and again, this is Dr. Ken, when I visited the Center for TM Studies in Kansas City. After speaking to the representatives there, they encouraged me to master the standard TM and then advance to the TM City program, where I would develop my psychic powers. Catch that term, psychic powers. The thing I noticed was both representatives seemed to have been on drugs sometimes in their life. Both were very slow to think and answer, much like a normal human when first awakened from a deep sleep. My first thought was, would someone trying to sell a product pick people who appeared to be damaged by drugs to sell their product? My second thought was maybe it wasn't drugs that did that to them. Maybe it was the meditation. Now, again, sit with that, wrap your brain around what he actually said, and decide, is that is that something you want to take a chance on? So, and beware of groups using new age terms. They're a dead giveaway that something is wrong. Check for any of the following terms. Now, before I read them, I'm going to tell you I have been in work seminars. I have been in church seminars. I have been in groups of people where I've heard almost every one of these terms bandied about as a great thing. So get familiar with them. Your higher self, higher consciousness, higher wisdom, ego, id, subconscious, superconscious, higher plane, planetary transformation. I may do a whole show on that one of these days. That and paradigm shift go together, and there's some pretty interesting concepts behind that. Basically, the short version is the paradigm shift is when enough people begin to think this way and begin to give themselves over to these energy spirits that the entire planet will have a shift in whose God they serve, what they think that the whole world is about. And incidentally, they believe that fundamental Jesus Bible believing Christians are in the way and the impediment to it. That ought to give you a little pause. Right? Planetary conversion goes right along with that. Global religion. What does the Bible say? There'll be a one world economic system, a one world religion, and a one world government. There's global shift. Again, that goes in with the paradigm shift. Centering, channeling, creative visualization, attuning, inner guidance, holistic health, human development, human potential, law of attraction. Makes me think of Rhonda Byrne's book. Law of rebirth, mystery schools, mysticism, new thought, perennial wisdom, radiance technique, transpersonal, universal oneness, etc. These terms refer to things that in reality do not exist. Stay away from people and groups that use terms like this. They're just confusion sent by Satan. I was in a work seminar one time where they were trying to get this group think going on, and they were leading. Everybody had to stand, everybody had to do this, everybody had to do that. I literally left. I was not going to be led into that, so I left the room till it was over. All right, let's look at the Word of Faith movement. Now, I almost took this out teaching it online because I don't want to stomp on anybody or hurt anybody's feelings. Certainly don't want to get any pushback here, but there's reasons why I did not, and we'll get to that. Some New Age ideas have crept into the church with the Word of Faith movement. In extreme form, Word of Faith taught the following: we're becoming little gods because of Jesus' gift. We're developing the magic power of faith. Get that term, magic power, where we can simply command God to do things for us or by our own faith power, name things into existence. Now, folks, my Bible says that we ask God. We come to him with our needs. We come to him and we bow before him humbly and we ask him for what he need, and his word says that, provision comes with the kingdom. We do not command God. We are not in a position to command God. God is the highest commander. He is the highest being. He is the creator. He is the one who makes the rules, if you will. In America, that would be a real nice way to say it. But we ask Him to do things for us. So when I begin to see these terms, we're becoming little gods. There's no place in the Bible that talks about that. That we're developing magic power of faith. He tells us to stay away from all magic, where we can command God. That is that it just makes my spirit cringe when I hear that term. And by our own faith power, name things into existence. Now, I have ran into many, many, many Christians who believe that you pray it, you claim it, it will happen. God has to do it. You basically commanded God to do it, is what it is. Um, we're not God. We're not going to be a God. We'll never be a God. We've never been a God. We don't command things into existence. We ask Him, and He either gives or He withholds. That's entirely within His hands, not within ours. So be careful of these things that you're pulling into yourself or into your life or accepting in your church. Oh, let me go back up one. All right. Even though Excuse me, I'm got a problem with my other slides. All right. Even though this was bad enough, they still taught Orthodox Christian doctrine. Now catch this. They're doing all these things that are incorrect, but they're still doing correct Orthodox Christian doctrine. This is what confuses people. Number 1, they did not meditate. They didn't practice sorcery with meditation. They did not say that God is in everyone and all faiths will lead to salvation. They believed in the resurrection and not reincarnation. They taught Wiccans, New Agers, Buddhists, Hindus, and Muslims would die and go to hell because they rejected Jesus Christ. Now we can get on board with all of those things. So, people say, well, they're not all bad. Well, that's right. But here's what we got to look at. In the 21st century, we have seen the acceptance of the Word of Faith heresy open wide a door for the entire emergent movement to enter the church full force. Now, to hear audio clips of the word faith proponents teaching heresy, go to BibleFacts.org. That's Dr. Ken's website, and I go there quite frequently and learn. You can also find him on YouTube as well. But BibleFacts.org, select Word Faith under the Cult section. There you'll find a good number of MP3s of these false teachings and their services. I actually looked him up online and some of the other people in this picture, and just to watch little clips, and I was truly, truly shocked at what I found. And that is why I left this in here. Not that I want to bash anybody else's faith, any other religion, whatever, but we're trying to teach truth here. And truth is what it is. And the true proof is out there. You just got to find it. All right. Versus against mixing the Bible with paganism, because that's what they're doing. They're doing wrong things and they're mixing it with right things. That is mixing the Bible with paganism. 2 Corinthians 6:14-16 says, what fellowship does light have with darkness? What agreement can exist between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God. James 4:4 says, friendship with the world is hostility toward God. Now, when I use the word world, or the Bible uses the word world, I remember growing up in a small church, they used the term worldly all the time, but they really never broke down what that was. So when I was older, I began to look for what they meant. And here's what I found. When they use the term world or worldly, they're talking about that system of rebellion against God and his known laws. Okay. the commandments that he gives us. If there's a rebellion against that, that would be what we'd call the world or worldly. It's that hostility toward God and that friendship with the world and the way that the pagans do things. All right, Revelation 2:14, and then again verse 20. Warnings to Pergamum and Thyatira about teaching that leads believers to eat food sacrificed to idols and practice immorality. These verses emphasize the importance of maintaining a clear separation between the worship of the Lord and any other form of worship, including pagan practices. They serve as a reminder of the spiritual realities involved in worship and the potential dangers of mixing different spiritual beliefs. What did God say? He would spew us out of his mouth if we began to mix it. Here's something I found that absolutely bothered me. Oh, wait a minute, I'm another slide ahead again. Sorry about that. Let me go down. I found this, and it was from a church, a Word of Faith fellowship, and this was in part of their documentation. I couldn't have printed the entire documentation and put in here, but I did clip this out. Let us take the opportunity to thank you for considering membership in Word of Faith Fellowship. A lady named Jane Wiley approved of your membership and asked that you be given this new member handout. In this handout, we will list a few of the very important rules, the do's and don'ts. Your enjoyment of your time with us will mainly be determined on how well you can keep these rules. Now, listen to this. This is very interesting. You will be required, I catch that word required. You'll be required to attend every service. If for some reason unforeseen at this time you miss a service, you'll be required to listen to the tape of the church. At the church, excuse me. You don't just gotta listen to it, you gotta listen to it at the church. Death, severe illness, and surgery may be considered excused absences. Yeah. All right, number 2, you will be required to tithe 10% of your gross earnings and give offerings. Jane will check your records from time to time. Number 3, you will be required to smile on command. Well, folks, they had me right there because there's no way I would do that. This is called keeping your happy face. Number 4, you will be required to participate in group work projects. Enjoy it. We have need of many skills. It's not that you can volunteer. It's not that things need done and people who have those skills decide they'll use them for the good of the church community. You will be required to participate in. After each service, you will be required to clean the church and fellowship hall on a rotating basis. Now, there were 145 don'ts in this guideline for new members. I would be in serious trouble if I were a Word of Faith congregant. And then it went on to say, here are some of my violations. This is something that I found years back, and I had lost a computer a while back with some really good stuff on it. This was one of them, so I was glad I had this slide. But I remember a few years back, I'd been to a little church for many, many years. Understand, I've taught the Bible since I was 16 years old. I did 7 years as a women's ministry leader. I have been the mission leader. I have taught children's quizzing. I have taught VBS. There's just tons and tons of stuff that I've done. Not that I'm an end all be all. I'm like everybody else, I'm learning and giving back what I've learned. But we decided at the point to change churches. And there was a couple that was a pastor and pastor's wife of a church not too far down from ours that had babysit our children for quite some time on and off as we needed that. And so I called him and told him that we were thinking about coming to visit his church. We made a decision we were going to change churches and we were starting to seek. He showed up at our house an hour later, I kid you not, with a manila envelope an inch and a half thick, would not come in the house, handed me this packet through the doorway and said, I don't think you'll be a good fit at our place. Turned around and got in his car and left. Say that I was shocked is mildly. But when I began to read that packet of material, it was quite a bit like this stuff, but it was just, I'm telling you, folks, there's no freedom in this. It wasn't God calling. It wasn't Holy Spirit calling. It wasn't biblical mandates. It was church mandates written by men designed to enslave and chain you, and anyone that did not fit that absolutely is not welcome in their house. Now, that is not the church that God set up. And this again is something that I hesitate to do quite often, but a lot of people ask me, well, who are these Word of Faith people? So, again, this is out of some of the material with with Dr. Ken, but here's some names: John Bevere, Morris Cerullo, Kim Lamont, Kenneth Copeland. I've watched some very interesting clips for him on YouTube as well. Paul Crouch, Creflo Dollar, Jesse Duplantis, Kenneth Hagan, Marilyn Hickey, Benny Hinn. That's some real interesting information on him as well. Rodney Howard Brown. I've read much of his material. Larry Hirsch, T.D. Jakes, calls himself Bishop T.D. Jakes, by the way. Joyce Meyer, Joel Osteen, Rod Parsley, Peter Popoff, Fred Price, Oral Roberts, R.W. Schambach, Carl Strader, and Robert Tilton. And they are quite vocal in the fact that they are Word of Faith people, so I'm not shoving them in a box that they don't want to be in. Many New Agers and some of the Word of Faith proponents will misquote Jesus when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." And that verse is Luke 17:21. Neither shall they say, Lo here, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And this is one of the verses they use to say that we can become a God. So that's all I have for tonight. And we will pick up next week. We'll start looking more at the emergent church, what it actually is, who the leaders are, what they teach, that sort of thing. And we're just breaking this down. It started before the flood with the fallen angel religion. It's really never stopped. It's just changed its form a little bit, and we're coming forward and forward and forward and forward, and then we'll just keep breaking it down. So if you like this series and you want to see some more like this, you want to see some more good teaching, you want some more links to some of the teachers who teach it way better than I do, the people that I study, then just let me know. And you guys, don't forget that I actually am marketing my book series right now, the Prepare for the End series. It's something that uses a lot of these topics that I've found and studied through the years and puts a straight head to head kingdom war between those who do the pagan practices and those who follow God. And don't forget also that go to olivehealth.net. I've become involved in a direct marketing company, and they still need reps quite a bit. It's a new company. The product is absolutely wonderful. It's healthy olive oil, healthy olive supplements, skincare, all kinds of stuff. You can be a representative, make a little cash on it. You can be a customer if you just need the products. They actually have a new anti-aging serum as well. So that's all I have tonight for Total Freedom. You guys share this with your friends if you think it's great. If they haven't started it all, send them part one, tell them to start going through it. It's some really, really good information. And I'll catch you guys next time we start breaking down the emergent church. Bye.